Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. My guest today is Ted Brown. He ran for the United States Senate in Texas, and he ran against um uh,
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz. Sorry. So, um, how long have you been interested in politics?
Cynthia, thanks for having me on. And I've been like a political junkie since I was a teenager. So, like for
Oh,
50 years, I've been fascinated with politics.
mhm.
I joined the Libertarian Party when I was a freshman in college, and that was like 46 years ago. And
Wow.
I'm one of the long time members of the party who's been fighting for liberty for all these decades, my whole adult life. And uh, and so I follow politics both from how I can promote liberty myself, and also just in general. I majored in political science, and I'm interested in the whole process just as an academic exercise too, separately from running and my own views on the subject. It's kind of a fascinating area.
So, is this your first race, or have you run for elected office before?
Oh, many times. Whenever I can help the libertarian cause, I will do it because I've also been involved for decades in recruiting libertarian candidates back in California when I lived there and now in Texas, because
Mhm,
I think it's vital for there to be as many libertarians on the ballot as possible.
mhm.
The public is just not all that interested in politics in general. And then one of the small, narrow margins of time where people actually like maybe focus on it is during the election season, like
Right.
on every other year. And so they may or may not hear the libertarian message, but that's about the main time when anybody would even be thinking of listening to the libertarian message. So if we're
Mhm.
not there, nobody's hearing about us. I mean, I comment on social media all the time, but a lot of people are only the biggest political junkies are on there in the off season. More people are interested in like from like August through November and even years. So yeah,
Mhm.
gotta be there running.
Mhm. So, what made you decide um to be involved in the third party rather than the two major parties?
Well, it's something I agreed with. I mean, way back when I was young, I thought I was a Democrat, like a liberal Democrat.
Mhm.
Everybody in my family's a Democrat except me. But then I was reading, back when I was a college freshman, I was reading Progressive Magazine way back then, and there was an article about the Libertarian Party. And it wasn't very flattering, but it was completely accurate. And I said, wait, this sounds like what I believe in. So I sent away for the information, and they sent me all the platform and the position papers and all that. I said, this is exactly what I believe in. I wasn't quite a Democrat, certainly not a Republican. I've always disliked the Republican Party, and but I'm a very I believe, well, I don't want to just toot my own horn, but I believe I'm very principled, and I don't think that would go over too well, and it hasn't gone over well with Democrats and Republicans. They just chew up and spit out anybody that has any principles that's trying to change things. It's just one establishment party, really. And they just will not change. They have the big shots, like George Carlin, the comedian, said, "It's a big club, and you're not in it."
Right,
And
exactly.
that's where the public is mostly screwed by the uniparty,
Mhm.
the two major parties. So that's why to keep my sanity and my principles, I've been promoting liberty and from the third party aspect for all these years.
So did you run for office in California?
I did, yes. In fact, it's funny. I ran for U.S. Senator there too, way back in 1998 against Senator Barbara Boxer, and then 26 years later in Texas against Senator Ted Cruz. But again, a liberal Democrat was my opponent back in California, and a conservative Republican
Wow.
in Texas. And I would run a very similar campaign in just about every state because it's a federal office, and it's what Congress is doing, and Congress, makes laws for the entire country, not just for
Right.
one of the states. So, yeah, I ran numerous times in California for a state and federal office, and the same in Texas. I've run a few times as well, but this was the biggest one recently. Was the
Mhm.
Senate race, and I may run again next year too against John Cornyn's the other senator from Texas.
So when you run for office, do you have a large war chest?
No, no, definitely not. And that's one of the problems. Like, well, say for example, last year, I mean, Cruz and Allred spent like over $100 million each. It was one of the most expensive Senate races in U.S. history because we're dealing with Texas with all these large media markets and all that. Mine was about 13,000, I think, was the whole budget of the campaign, and it was about half me and half contributors. And that's the thing. There's no special interest want to give to libertarians or Greens or any third parties because,
Mhm.
and for us especially because we're not offering any kind of like largesse out of the Treasury. It's not like the other guys are getting campaign contributions to the Democrats and Republicans because they expect subsidies and government contracts on one hand, or to protect themselves, like protection money, to stop themselves from being like regulated out of business by sort of like mob bosses.
Mhm.
They got to pay protection money to the mob bosses so they don't get regulated or abused, and then they have to pay both sides in case they don't want to be on the losing side. So they send contributions to both sides.
Right, right. So, a libertarian. I live in New York,
Hmm.
so it's pretty hard for a third party candidate to get on the ballot in New York State
Yes.
because Cuomo, when he was governor, he upped the number of signatures from 15,000 statewide to 45,000 statewide in the course of a month. So, what's the petitioning process like down in Texas?
Well, first of all, in New York, I'm familiar with that situation because the great Larry Sharp was the
Yes.
Libertarian candidate for governor of New York back in 2018, and for the first time, he got enough votes to gain the New York Party permanent ballot status, and that's why the powers that be didn't like that, so they changed the law so that neither we nor any other third party can get on the ballot. And I
Right.
believe in 2024 was the first time that there had only been the two presidential candidates since World War II. The first time that there were no third party presidential candidates on New York's ballot. So that was they did a great job in getting rid of the third parties. Now in Texas, currently it's a lot easier. We have permanent ballot status as long as we keep getting a certain number of votes. And so we're a convention party. We don't have primaries. We just have to now it's a new thing. We have to pay. They force us to pay filing fees, and we never had to before. But if we pay the filing fee and our own party nominates us at our state convention, like I was nominated unanimously at our state convention in 2024, then we're on the ballot. And so it's a lot easier if you have money to pay the fees here in Texas.
Is the fee very expensive?
Well, the Senate race is the highest. It's $5,000 filing fee, and it's $37.50 for the other statewide offices like governor and attorney general and those. $31.25 for Congress, which is really high, but it's much lower, like $750 for the state legislature. So most of the libertarians who want to run for office in Texas run for the Texas State House, the state
Mhm.
legislature.
But then they don't have to worry about going out and getting signatures, right?
Exactly. No, the only people we could replace the filing fee with like a certain number of signatures, but it's really hard to get them, and there's no process for even submitting them or having people check them or anything. They make it very difficult. So
Really?
yeah, so we got to stick with the filing fee, unfortunately. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Is Texas the only state that doesn't have a petitioning process but has the fee to get on the ballot?
I think there's a number of states that have that.
Really?
Yeah, I think in a lot of those states they just don't want to. They don't want to review these signatures. That's not
Uh-huh.
very easy. That's not real very easy for them to do.
Well, it's really difficult to
Hmm.
get also.
Hmm.
Yep. So over the years, tell us a little bit about your experiences with the Libertarian Party.
Well, I've, again, like I've been a member and an activist my whole adult life. I joined when I was 18, and I'm 60. I just turned 65 the other day, so I've been in it my whole adult life. And my experience is it's a great group of people. They believe in personal freedom, economic freedom across the board, live and let live. It's so funny though. A lot of people argue with each other because, like, one of the funny things is you're not a real libertarian, and everybody jokes about that because you're in a room of 10 libertarians, and of course you think 9 of them aren't the real libertarian because everybody thinks they're just the only one who's like ideologically pure or whatever. But we're still able to work together very well when. We're trying to like oppose the big government types that want to put more and more rules on our personal freedoms and economic freedoms. So we got to work together. It's a lot of individualists, but we still have to work together for a cause that we all believe in.
Now, has there been any libertarians elected? Let's start with California. Have there been libertarians elected in California?
Well, libertarians have been elected in a number of states for smaller offices. For example,
Okay.
like city council, school board,
Hmm.
water district, all these like special districts, that kind of thing. And that because that's most of those are like nonpartisan offices where you don't list your party
Okay.
affiliation. So libertarians have been elected to those, Greens have been elected to those,
Hmm.
other third parties have been elected to those kind of offices. But when you talk about partisan offices where the name libertarian appears, we've only elected state legislators to the lower house in about, I think, 5 states over the whole 40 some years or 50 years of our party's history. New Hampshire, Alaska, Vermont, Wyoming, and there might have been one other one, but
Hmm.
it's not easy. It's not easy. In fact, the most recent was one in Wyoming. I think in 2020, I think we elected a state legislator there, and then 2 years later, he was defeated because the big parties regrouped. And there's so much tribalism too. It's like even if we have the best candidate, that name, just having that word libertarian is poison. And the same person ran for nonpartisan office for city council in the same area, a year later they could get elected. But if they run as in a partisan office as a libertarian, people say, "Yeah, nah, gotta." My granddaddy was a Democrat, my daddy was a Democrat. I'm always going to vote for a Democrat."
Right.
And same with the Republicans.
Hmm. So, if only a handful of libertarians have been elected, what power do they have once they're elected?
Well, we do have like some of the city council members that we have in office right now publicize about how they're able to, convince their colleagues to have more economical city governments. Not spend money on like totally pie in the sky projects that city councils often pay for. They like want to audit the city agencies and make sure that there's not budget and cost overruns that are usually just like sloughed under the table because everybody's like scratching each other's back. So a libertarian on any board, especially as council that only has like 5 members, and you're one of the 5 members, you can often get some things done.
No.
So that's the key. And I think, in fact, the current strategy of the National Libertarian Party is local elections to try to get people elected to these smaller positions where they can actually get some things done. They just aren't as like glamorous, shall we say, as running for the bigger offices. Like we have to have a presidential candidate, for example, who isn't going to do all that well percentage-wise, but sort of is how we need someone in that position to get ballot access.
Right.
To like a certain percentage. And in some states, like the race for governor every 4 years, you have to have people running for the higher offices to stay on the ballot. But we would get more done actually in reality running for the smaller offices. But in order to be able to run candidates for those, we have to run for the higher offices.
So, when you run
Uh-huh.
as the libertarian, the third party, um, how does the press deal with you? Are they favorable? Do you get a lot of good coverage?
Zero coverage. They
Zero.
refuse. They absolutely refuse to cover us. Mostly, at least in Texas, they sure do. They will absolutely not cover us. I mean, for example, the Austin American Statesman, my local newspaper here in the state capital, where I live in Austin, they've interviewed the editorial board will interview me and other libertarian candidates, and then just not mention us at all when they endorse one of the other. They usually endorse Democrats. Whenever they endorse one of the major party candidates, they don't even invite us to debates. Now, different groups invite us, but certainly the media doesn't. Even in the smaller cities, it's really frustrating. Some of the smaller states, libertarians get invited by public TV, for debates and things like
Mhm.
that, public radio, public TV.
Right.
But it's very difficult. For example, I even hired a professional political consultant this last time, and he had used to work for Democrats, and he had all kinds of contacts and everything. And my goal was to get on like radio talk shows, for example, where
Right.
it'll get the message out to a lot of people. It wasn't even like news articles about me because I probably wasn't doing anything all that newsworthy, but at least from their point of view. But at least getting to talk about the issues with these talk show hosts, like the local ones and all. And no one would even return his calls. They always would when he was like representing like a Democratic candidate. But when he said he was representing Ted Brown, the libertarian running for U.S. Senate, nope, just crickets. They just absolutely would not even respond to a guy they knew who was trying to get me on the air. So basically, I was left with podcasts, of course, with a lot of podcasts from people who are ideologically committed to more of a limited government point of view, and
Hmm.
just what I could do on social media. On Facebook and Twitter and all that, which often libertarian messages get shadow banned, like they see the word
They
libertarian.
do.
Yeah.
Really.
So it's very difficult, but I still, after all that, got a record number of votes for a libertarian Senate candidate in Texas, 267,000 votes, or like 2 point something percent. So, the percentage was kind of low, but the number of votes was good because so many people voted in the election.
So, shadow ban. Have you spoken to a number of uh, other libertarian candidates who have the same problem that you do, that they've been shadow banned on the internet?
Oh, some of them are worse. They get banned completely from Facebook and Twitter and some of these social media sites. Now, I've never been banned because I actually don't like insult people and use foul language or
Right.
call people's names or anything. I'm very I don't approve of that really. I want real political discourse where issues are discussed, and you don't like attack people's wives and dogs and all that stuff,
Uh-huh.
and threaten them or anything. So I'm very polite, and I have what I think is worth information that think is worth getting out to the public. And so I've never been banned, but I can tell that very few people see the message because some of these they tell you like what the circulation is of them, and
Right.
once in a while one does well because a lot of people start sharing it. But the right
Right.
people have to start doing that, and it's very hit and miss. You never know what's going to take off and what isn't.
Right.
So it's very frustrating, but at least with social media, and which is, virtually, cost free, you can still get out to more people than you could in the old days when you had to like pay
Right.
for every form of media.
Mm-hmm. How about raising money? Is that a problem?
Well, again, we're not going to get, I didn't, and most of us, our candidates, are not going to get these big special interest contributions. Certainly, individual contributions, mine were all small individual contributions. The highest, I think, well, one guy, our party's biggest contributor, gave me the maximum of 3,300, but everybody else was like below 500, and most were below 100
Mm-hmm.
for the contributors. And that's wonderful. In fact, a lot of the major party candidates promote that, getting little small contributions, and they do, like Bernie Sanders and some other candidates do get small individual contributions, and that's a good thing for because then people have like individual contributors have sort of like a stake in the campaign and all that,
Right.
which they wouldn't normally because they've contributed $20 or $50 or
Mhm.
whatever it is. But still, there's no way to raise any kind of competitive money. I'd have to be like a multimillionaire and just spend my own money if I wanted to get the word out. No, I'm sure those media outlets would take my money if I wanted to actually pay to run ads. Uh,
Right.
but that's pretty expensive to do that with these expensive large Texas media markets, like Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston.
Right.
These are some of the biggest cities in the country. So they have very expensive media markets.
Right. So you rely basically on social media then,
Right, social media, and I gave some speeches, but again, I didn't get out too much because you can't meet enough people in person, to
right?
because this is a big state. I mean, there's like, 30 million people in Texas. So, there's not a lot of ways to meet a lot of voters for a statewide race. Now, for a local race, absolutely. Anybody that running for the Texas state legislature, for example, which is there's 150 legislators with about 200,000 people in each district. That's a lot easier to get people to like walk, knock on doors and pass
Mm,
out literature and attend
right.
local community forums where everybody lives right in that same area where you're running. Then that makes a lot of sense, but not as much for a statewide office.
Because of there's so many obstacles that are put in front of you,
Hmm.
do you ever get discouraged?
Oh, I'm a very optimistic person. I've always have a good point of view. If I a positive point of view. If I didn't, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. But
Mm,
that's just my temperament. I think I have a good temperament for this because things sort of wash over me. Somebody insults me or calls me names or say I'm some kind of a threat to world peace. Whatever they're going to say about me.
mhm, mhm.
I just let that slide off of me, and I don't really worry about it. But I certainly wish I could get the message out more. Mostly from the point of view is that I just want to get the message out. I think more people need to hear the message. I mean, I don't really have a big ego in the thing. I mean, if I just as soon be more anonymous if I'm walking down the street. I don't want to be like Ted Cruz or J.D. Vance or somebody who's like spit on and have things thrown at them when they walk down the street. But I do want to promote because it's not about me personally. It's about promoting liberty, about promoting individual rights, and I believe government's a big bully, and they've got to be reined in. And whatever I can do to promote that point of view, promote that idea, that's what I want to be able to do, no matter whether there's a lot of pushback or not.
Mhm. Mm. So, final thoughts on final thoughts on the entire political scheme of things and how third parties can make a difference.
Well, we shouldn't give up. And the public really wants a third party. As we see, Elon Musk has started this America Party. We'll see if
Right.
that goes anywhere. But the point is, whether it does or not, he said he would do it because a large number of people voted on Twitter X to tell him that he should do that. Hundreds of thousands of people told him that he should start a new party, and he registered a new party. As to whether it'll go anywhere, I don't know. But the public really is looking for an alternative. They aren't happy with the Democrats and Republicans, but they keep voting for them anyway. It's like it's sort of like an abusive spouse or something. Even though you're supposed to get away from them, you just keep voting, keep going back to them, and that's what people do with the Democrats and Republicans. They get every time they get disillusioned, but they say, next time, it'll be fine the next time. But no, the Democrats will always disappoint the Democrats. The Republicans will always disappoint the Republicans. Donald Trump is going to disappoint his supporters. In fact, he already is now with this Epstein situation. He stoked that for decades here, and now he won't. His supporters are so into that they won't let it go, and he's really at his peril is ignoring his supporters on that. And that's the thing. He's disappointed a lot of people too. Not enough yet. More people need to be disappointed by him because he's screwing over most of his supporters. I don't know why anybody really supports that guy, but the point is, he's no different than the usual Democrats and Republicans who disillusion their supporters for different reasons. People just don't get what they want. Studies have shown that what the average voter wants is not what gets done in Congress or in your state legislature. It's what the special interests want, what the contributors want, not what the people want.
You know, in watching the 2024 presidential um campaign unfold, you would hear over and over again, the donors, the donors, the don. It's like the voters, they're second to the donors. The donors seem to be the ones that have to be taken care of first.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. That's who I'm not saying necessarily in most cases the politicians are being bribed specifically, but what that money is buying is access. That money buys access. They're going to take a phone call from the guy that's given them a big contribution to lobby them for his point of view. And he's not going to take my phone call. He's not going to take your phone call. He's going to take the guy who gave him $100,000 phone call, you
Mhm.
know, and presumably he'll agree with that guy. Not necessarily, but the guy's bought access at least. And that's what they're getting for that money is access.
Right, right. So over the years, have you seen third parties succeed more as time goes by?
No, no, not electorally, but ideologically sometimes. For example, some of what libertarians have been advocating for the last 50 years have been implemented eventually on the civil liberties side of things.
Mm.
For example, libertarians were advocating. We have always opposed drug laws and have, like, for example, marijuana being illegal. And starting in 1996 in California with medical marijuana, which we were part of that campaign to legalize medical marijuana, the public has slowly moved into that column. So vast majorities of the public now certainly believe in medical marijuana, and even a vast majority favor recreational marijuana being legal. That was a libertarian view only. It was only us for decades. Everybody thought we were nuts for wanting to. They thought we were just like a bunch of wild hippies or something, and they just ignored that. But that's the view. We were in favor of gay people being allowed to get married 50 years ago. It took 40 years for the Democrats to catch up, and the Republicans never have caught up. So
Mhm.
it's like that was us, and you know, in a lot of instances, that libertarian view, people have come around on some issues, and that's very important. I don't care who gets the credit for it. I just want to promote individual liberty, and if somebody else actually gets it done, that's fine with me. But if we had never been there to advocate for those positions, would it ever have happened? I don't know. I think it wouldn't, not necessarily the Libertarian Party, but libertarian think tanks like the Cato Institute, the Reason Foundation, a lot of these people that have been academically advocating for these positions. If none of us had been there, there would have been no countermand or counter view to the statist philosophy that there should just be bigger and bigger government and more control. So as long as we're there, we're helping. That's for sure.
So even though you're not winning a lot of seats at all levels, you're making a difference because you're raising consciousness. Is that my understanding?
Exactly. If we can get, for example, on the other side of the political spectrum, the Socialist Party USA hardly ever won an election, but just about everything that was in their 1932 platform has been adopted by the Democrats and Republicans. So didn't win an election, but they won the ideological race
Right.
there. So the same. I've seen people campaign on some of the libertarian platform. Not that they implement it sometimes, like Republicans sometimes advocate some of our economic positions and then don't do it, but they're recognizing that they're legitimate positions that people would respond to, and that's why they campaign on them. They just then govern the opposite once they get elected.
So if anybody's hearing this and wants to contact you, how can they do so?
Well, they can go to my website, which is tedbrown.org. That's probably the best place to go, tedbrown.org. You can find me on Facebook at Ted Brown, Libertarian for U.S. Senator from Texas. And I'm on Twitter at Ted Brown Liberty. So if people want to find me, but yeah,
Great.
go to the website's the easiest, tedbrown.org, and they can click onto the other ones like as just a clicker
Terrific.
there.
So thank you, Ted. You've been listening to Ted Brown. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Focus on the Candidates. So if you like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Ted, I would love to talk with you again at your convenience. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.